Edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS network. I am Mike Kadlick, joined as always by my co-host Alex Barth from 98.5 The Sports Hub. We're on a little bit of a funky schedule here with the Patriots playing last Thursday, now not playing until next Monday. We're going to preview Patriots Cardinals on Thursday, so with the extra episode in here, we're going to do a full live Q&A. So everyone watching, drop those questions into the chat. Patriots related. If you want to, some college football related, we'll do a college football minute later. We'll get to all that as well. Drop those questions in the chat. And as those questions start to come in, we'll touch on some Patriots news came down today, a bunch of it. Starting out with probably the most notable piece of news was that it sounds like Patriots versus Raiders in 2 weeks was officially flexed out for Commanders-Giants.
It's a sneaky good game. People are making fun of it. It's a sneaky good game.
It's a good game, but it's like a team who didn't even have a name last year is taking over the Patriots on primetime. That's when you know you've hit a new low.
Yeah, I mean, that's as much about the Raiders as it is about the Patriots. But it's, this should have been a big game. This should have been two teams that I don't think realistically people were counting on these two teams winning their divisions. But these should have been two teams that were in the middle of the wild card race. And maybe this was for, seeding, definitely for a playoff spot. It should have been that kind of game. And maybe the Raiders are climbing their way back in here a little bit. I think it's going to be, they've played well lately. I think it's going to be too little too late for this year. I think they're kind of putting things together for next year right now. But yeah, really an indictment on both sides. And look, the NFL clearly wanted Bills Dolphins Saturday night. It's not a great slate, but yeah, Giants Commanders is a better game than Patriots Raiders. It just is.
Yeah, it is. Again, they played to a tie yesterday, which I saw some pushback on Brian Daboll sort of playing for a tie there in overtime, but it also seemed like the Commanders did the exact same thing. When they got the ball back,
they both played for a tie. It was really gross.
Awful. Yeah, it was. I don't like ties. I'm not a tie person at all. I just think that it's stupid. I don't know if you saw who was one of the linemen said something about, it was an absurd analogy about kissing your sister is like
kissing your sister thing. Yeah.
It's just get it all out of there. We don't need any of that nonsense. Patriots Raiders flexed out of next Sunday. So they'll play at 4:05. The other piece of Patriots news, Patriots-ish news, I guess, former wide receiver Deion Branch, who is currently the Louisville director of player development, is going to be their interim head coach in their bowl game at Fenway Park in Boston coming up on December 17th. So the Louisville, I thought this was interesting. So the Louisville coach is leaving for Cincinnati, and they're playing them in their bowl game on the 17th. So Deion Branch gets a chance to shine for Louisville.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. And it's funny this happens while there's all this talk right now about the Patriots offensive coaching staff.
Yeah.
The AD at Louisville, whose name I can't remember, but when they introduced Branch today, said that Branch doesn't have any head coaching aspirations. He's not in consideration for the Louisville job. So I know where people want to go, like their brains want to go, right? It's like, oh, if Deion Branch wins the Fenway Bowl, and by the way, it's funny that game is here in Boston.
Right.
There's a lot of coincidences in this one. Kind of made, Matrix glitched here.
It's perfect.
I know there's a lot of people that they want to go to the Fenway Bowl and they want to be there at 11 a.m. and watch Louisville take Cincinnati up and down the field offensively. And then, the game ends and Deion Branch is named the Patriots' next offensive coordinator. I know a lot of people want that to happen. I'm interested to see what Deion's going to look like as a coach. It's not to say Deion's not going to be a good coach. He has coached at the high school level, so it's not like he's never done it. I'm interested to see what it looks like, but it doesn't sound like he's looking to make the leap into coaching, at least right now. So it'll be fun to watch, though. It'll be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, it's something. They sort of they do this, at least on the college level, they do it a lot, bringing in, like Kadlick Williams was the Auburn interim head coach. Now they're doing it with Deion. The Colts just did it with Jeff Saturday.
The Colts, they're all a little different. Kadlick was on the Auburn staff.
Sure.
At least Deion Branch had a title with the team.
Saturday's different, but
you do kind of see that now, yeah.
Yeah, they give the guys a shot. That's that. Deion Branch, congratulations to you. And finally, the Patriots made a roster move this afternoon, signing defensive back Quandre Mosley to the practice squad. Alex, what do you have on Mosley?
Yeah, so he's a guy I actually identified during the pre-draft process as a player who might make sense here. 2-year D1 player, transferred from JUCO, really wasn't on anybody's radars until the Kentucky Pro Day. It wasn't even at the Combine, but he in Kentucky had a really good class, really good draft class last year, and he just blew up the Pro Day, ran a 4.32 40. Played some safety, some corner, was mainly a player in the kicking game for them. So, I mean, you see a guy like that, great athlete, transfer, was viewed as a leader in that locker room there his senior year, has played a lot in the kicking game, like just kind of screamed Patriot. He ended up going undrafted. He would have been redundant to Brennan Schooler. Like, that's kind of my read on it, was they chose, they wanted to sign a guy like that, and Schooler was the guy they went with. He's been Mosley's ended up, he signed, he was in camp with somebody. He's played for like 3 or 4 teams this year, so he's been around. But if he gets elevated, we'll see him in the kicking game. But just the guy's a really good raw athlete and a good locker room guy.
Yeah, so like you said, locker room guy, special teamer. Don't see any fit for him in the defensive backfield, barring injury. But again, Patriots make a move. We talk about all of them here on Patriots Beat. So let's get into some Q&A. The first one right here I want to bring up because it kind of goes along with some Patriots news that came in this morning as well, with Bill Belichick on the radio saying that the Patriots will not be making an offensive coordinator move during the season. He didn't say they won't do it in the offseason, but he did say they won't do it this season. They're going to just stick to their guns and go forward. But do you think the Patriots will change offensive coordinators in the offseason? Do you think they go for a wide receiver 1 or a right tackle in the offseason? These are 3 positions where I feel like we've said this for 3-4 years in the offseason. Are they going to do this? Do they do it this year?
So, offensive coordinator, they have to. They can't possibly, I get what Bill's saying about doing it during the regular season maybe isn't the best way to do it. And I said this after the Bears game, everybody wanted him gone. And I said, look, he's probably not the long-term answer, but it's too much change all at once. I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. I think at this point, one way or the other, it's chaotic. So you might as well get the guy, if not out of the building, at least out of the meeting room. I don't know that they'd, I think Matt Patricia is going to be here next year because Bill likes him.
He has a job for life here, whether it's upstairs or downstairs.
It's going to be upstairs again. They'll just get rid of the offensive line and offensive coordinator part, and he'll just be the director of football research or whatever, or assistant to the head coach or whatever the hell that first title is that he has. But there's no way they can do their end of season audit and look at this and say that worked, right? And I guess the one thing I look at is, look at Steve, right? Steve Belichick, where we went through this with him a couple of years ago. He's not ready. Why does he have this job? He's actually pretty good at this now. Gerard Mayo obviously is a big part of that, the two of them working together. But, will they look at Matt Patricia like they looked at Steve and say, well, maybe he wasn't ready when we got him the job, but he'll learn on the job and get better? God. To me, it's apples and oranges. I don't think that would happen, right? Steve Belichick grew up with defense. He was a safeties coach before they turned it over to him. Obviously, in meetings with his dad and stuff like that. I believe he played safety at Rutgers. He's a defensive-minded guy. He probably did get promoted too soon, but it's the logical conclusion was him eventually ending up in that job, right? He was on track for that job. He maybe skipped a step. Matt Patricia was never on track for this job. He didn't even skip the steps.
He skipped like 10 steps,
right. He was on a completely different street. So that's the one thing I'm worried about. Will they look at it like that? I don't, I wouldn't. No. But short of that, yes, new OC. Absolutely. Wide receiver 1, I think these are the 2 big things, right? You've got to go out and you've got to get that. We're seeing it every week now. What a guy like Jamar Chase, what a guy like Tyreek Hill, what a guy like A.J. Brown does for a young quarterback. We're seeing that all over the league, whether it's Jerry Jeudy, whether it's moving up in the draft to get a guy like Jordan Addison, maybe Devonta, who?
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Jackson Smith, I'd worry about him with the injuries.
That's true.
Maybe Devontae Smith isn't happy with how much he's getting the ball in Philly. You reunite him with Mac Jones, whatever it is.
That's an answer.
So here's the thing, though. If we're going to rank these 3 things in terms of what they need the most, OC's number 1. I would actually put right tackle or just tackle. I think Trent can play either side. We'll just call it tackle for now. I'd actually go tackle 2, wide receiver 3, because
I'm going to push back on that after you go ahead.
No, what were we about Trent?
No, just about the rankings. So you
Okay,
tell me
so
why, but
I'll make
I'm
the point.
flipping wide receiver and right tackle. But
Okay,
go ahead.
I just think like you just used a top 50 pick on Tyquan Thornton. You still have Devontae Parker, who's been 1,000-yard guy under contract. You still have these two tight ends. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love the depth they have in terms of pass catchers. I really do. And I find it tough to judge anybody on this offense on this season because of what's going on with the offense coordinator, right?
Sure.
That's not to say that I would be against them going out and adding that guy, or I mean, they should pursue it. But in terms of what is the biggest, if they go into next year with a new receiver, but no, the tackle position isn't adjusted, the receiver's not going to matter. Max still isn't going to have time. You're going to need an absolute whiz kid of an OC to figure that out. They have enough in the passing game. I don't think they have they have what they need. I don't think they have any more than what they need. Like it's the bare minimum what they need, but I think they have enough to be look, they were top 10 offense last year. Right? They were top 10 offense last year, and they upgraded N'Keal Harry to Devontae Parker, and they added a top 50 pick in Tyquan Thornton. So, again, I'm all for adding the big name wide receiver. I'm all for it. But, if it comes down to they're sitting on the board there, and it's trade that first round pick for Jerry Jeudy, or take a tackle who they're sure is like a for sure lock franchise tackle, Matt Light, Nate Solder type, you have to take the tackle. You have to, because it's bad right now. It's ugly. They can't get it blocked. Trent Brown has taken a step back. Isaiah Wynn, I think, he's hurt right now. I think he's still going to be benched when he gets back. There's nobody else beyond. They don't have enough tackles to fill out the roster. We saw them putting James Ferentz at left tackle in warmups the other day. That, in terms of position, I still put OC number one. But tackle is absolutely 100% the biggest need positionally. And again, I'm not against the wide receiver thing. I think there's absolutely an argument for it, but it's a high third, but
So the
I put it
pushback
third.
I have is compare it to the Bengals of 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because their thought process, so it seemed from the outside looking in, was do we take Jamar Chase or do we take a guy like Penei Sewell? And what they did was they took their guy in Jamar Chase, and then they made smaller incremental changes to their line from there. They still didn't have a great offensive line, and they still had a hard time protecting Burrow last year, but they brought in Jamar Chase, and they made it to the freaking Super Bowl the following year, even with a banged-up O-line. I know the Patriots O-line situation is probably worse than Cincinnati's right now, but you remember that meme where it was Burrow throwing the ball over a line to the guy Chase, and it was if they do whatever. It seemed to work even with the banged up O-line because you at least had a guy who you could rely on play in and play out. And Mac doesn't really have that right now. Sure, you have Jacoby who's a security blanket, but he's not a big play machine. And if you look to a guy like Tyquan Thornton, we'll get to it in the next question I have coming up, but they used Marcus Jones instead of him last week as the playmaker. I know it's year one, but I think that you need in this league the way it's played right now. You look at all the examples. You look at the AJ Browns and the Tyreek Hills and Stephon Diggs with Josh Allen, and it's like they need that guy right now more so than they need a bolstered offensive line. They can make small adjustments. They can move guys around. They have guys in the pipeline, and it's not to say that you can't go get the big splash and then sign, make smaller moves. So I think that's the way to go right now.
They still have Ramondre Stevenson, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to run what their offense is. They need the tackle. I just really think they need the tackle for things to operate correctly. Team, I know it worked with Burrow and Chase, but that team they had a lot of talent, right? It was really everything but the offensive line. They were set. And it was we were still talking about the offensive line, right? They maybe got further. They maybe could have won that Super Bowl if they had a better offensive line. So I still think it's the tackle ahead of the wide receiver, but it is close. It is close.
Yeah, it is close again. So let's go. Like we said, the title of the show is rapid fire. So let's keep it moving here. And like I was saying about Marcus Jones, do you think he could get more practice on offense, make his way into a slot? Fast, shifty guy, has heart. He's a great team guy. I want to say what I just said originally was that you already have the guy who you want to see shifting this out of it, Tyquan Thornton. Just use him and save Marcus Jones for the defensive reps he's getting and the special teams because he is very valuable. He is very fast. But if he's playing on all three sides of the ball, he's gonna get he's prone to more injury. He's good. He made plays, but get Tyquan Thornton the ball.
Look, I don't hate it. When they drafted him, I said that this should be a thing. He played wide receiver in college. He's used to it. And I don't hate having a package for him. I really don't. I'd love to see plays where it's him and Tyquan on the field, along with Nelson Aguilar, because there's not a defense in the league that has the speed to keep up with all those guys. So I think he'll stay involved. I agree with you. If you're really just looking for raw speed on your offense, it should be Tyquan Thornton. And this goes back
Right.
to the offensive coordinator that he can't figure that out, and they have to go to this gadget thing. But, you know, I feel like you're hearing people say, oh, convert him to a wide receiver. Oh, no, he can't. Like, just give him a couple plays on offense. Nobody's asking him to be the NFL Shohei Ohtani. But having a package that he can come in, it's something the defense has to be ready for, isn't necessarily going to ruin him as a corner, especially when right now they're still playing Miles Bryant over him. You know, maybe down the road, if he becomes like a true number one corner, yeah, you don't want, if he becomes like an all pro caliber corner, you don't want to risk him on offense. I totally get that.
Right.
But for now, why not? Like, I'm not opposed to a package or two. I'm really not.
I like this one.
All right.
One game for your life. 2022 Cam Newton Patriots offense or 2020 Patriots offense? You have McDaniels calling plays for Cam, but you have Patricia calling plays for Mac.
I might have to go 2020 just because at least you know what you're getting, right? The 2022 is so all over the board.
Right.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
This is going to be a fun debate we're going to have all year. Yeah. Can I drop a question here real quick?
Go for it.
I've seen a lot of people ask this. Is it worth going to the playoff? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because people seem to act like the two options are like make the playoffs. Or like if you don't, you get a top 5 pick. They're not picking in the top 5. They're not picking in the top 10. Okay. Right. If they don't make the playoffs, they're going to be just outside. They're going to be picking like, I don't know, 15, 16, 17. You make the playoffs, it's 18 or 19. They're also going to trade down anyway.
Right.
So
they're not going to take that really top 20 prospect that you want.
You need to stay. The Patriots are projected to have the third most cap space in the league this upcoming offseason. You need to prove you're still an attractive option for free agents. Right now, that's really not the case. They can do a lot to reverse that between now and the time free agency starts. And one of those things is playing in a playoff game, getting some national exposure. It's never, ever a bad idea to make the playoffs. The draft pick. If you're picking high enough that it makes a difference, you were never going to make the playoffs in the first place. There's no lottery in the NFL. It's not like they get an outside shot. This draft class is relatively deep. We need to stop with this nonsense of like, oh, what are they doing? Why are they trying to make the playoffs? Just please, you sound like idiots. Please stop doing that.
Right. When you're on that fringe, it's worth trying to make the playoffs versus not. The 15th pick compared to the 17th pick, 18th pick, whatever you call it, is rarely that much of a difference. You see it if you go back. You can try and prove me wrong there, and you probably will. But you get the gist. Where Casario had talked about, there's pockets of players. That's the same pocket of player, is trying versus not trying to get into the playoffs, and you're right on the fringe.
Right, and I'm trying to pull up the trade chart right now. I can literally tell you what the difference is. I think, is this it? Yeah, this is it. I can literally tell you what the difference is. So what are we saying? 15 and call it 19?
Call it 19.
All right. So the 15th pick in the draft is worth 315 points. The 19th pick in the draft is worth 278. So 315 minus 278 is 37. So if there's a player you absolutely have to have, right? Absolutely have to have. Costs a 4th round pick. If you need to get from 19 to 15, it's 19 and a 4th round pick for 15. So you're essentially, the argument here in not making the playoffs is a 4th round pick. It is worth saving a 4th round pick to not make the playoffs. And for all the crap everybody gives this team about caring too much about late round picks, you're all doing it way more than they ever did. Don't make the playoffs because of the draft pick. It's a 4th round pick you are giving up the postseason for. Just know that if you're going to make that argument, because you sound stupid.
And as much as I am down on this Patriots team, and I've talked about it ad nauseum, anything can happen once you get there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Injury, Mac has a game, things hit the right way. You could fall backwards into the AFC Championship game and then anything.
I mean, look at the Bengals. The Bengals kind of limped in last year, and then they made the Super Bowl, and now they're this destination and all of that. So yeah, I plus you really want the Jets to get in. If it's not you, it's probably the Jets. Don't subject us to having to watch the Jets in the playoffs.
Exactly. Let's see. I'm firing through these questions here. Let's find something good. If you have something, you can pull it up as well. But
Here's a good one.
okay,
Has Josh Uche arrived?
seems
Yeah,
so. I mean,
yeah.
he's been a guy who when he got here was looked at. Was he a second or third round pick? Third.
Was he late second, early third?
It was right on that fringe. But he's a guy who
Who
they
went
brought in.
first, him or Jennings? Because they drafted him back to back. The first one was a second round pick. Uche was He was the second to last pick in the second round.
Okay, so again, a guy who was a second round pick, who was kind of expected to come in here and make noise, and he really hasn't until this year. But he's been very reliable as the other side of a dominant pass rusher, right? Because you have your two bookends, and in theory you put your stronger tackle on Judon and your weaker one on Uche, and he's taken full advantage of that this year, and he looks awesome. What's he have, like five, 6 sacks now? I mean,
Yeah, whatever it is,
he's
the career
rolling.
high.
Yeah, he's rolling.
Yeah, I think he's finally healthy. I think they finally figured out kind of a role he succeeds in. Look, a big part of it's Matthew Judon, right? Drawing all that attention.
Right.
This is what we talked about in the offseason. The guy on that other side doesn't need to be an all-pro. He just needs to be good enough to win one-on-one on a regular basis, which Josh Uche is doing right now. So, yeah, I mean, he's been, arrived in the extent that I don't know that he's going to be a Pro Bowler this year or anything, but this level of play from him is this is the guy they drafted him to be. I think they drafted him to be that secondary pass rusher. I think they, maybe not Matthew Judon, but I think they always knew that they were going to go out and they saw they had that money on the books, go get that elite guy on the other side. And this is the role we've been penciling him in for 3 years, is that
Right.
secondary pass rusher on the strong side. And he's finally really kind of coming into it in that role this year.
Right. Here's a quick one that I just came right here. Is Montgomery going to play this year? I say no. Again, we've talked about he went out with an ankle. It ended up being a shoulder. They also gave his number to Tristan Vizcaino, who now wears number 14. I know that Vizcaino, it's not going to come down to, jersey number, whether they bring a guy back or not, obviously. But it seems like Ty Montgomery's time this year with the Patriots is all but finished. Would you tend to agree?
Well, Bill told us he's not playing again this year, so yeah.
Perfect. So there you go.
Yeah.
I just had one and now I can't find it regarding. There's the playoffs. The fullback. Okay. So is it important to go back to the fullback? Is there any interesting free agent fullbacks out there? I don't know about the free agent market, but I mean, Jakob Johnson went to Vegas with Josh McDaniels again. Their offense hasn't been great this year either, but I don't really know how or in what fashion you could all of a sudden just plug and play a fullback into this offense. I think that's going to be more of an offseason thing, just like the offensive coordinator, because clearly they went away from it this season. So you can't just say, okay, yank the second tight end and put the fullback in the backfield. That's a little bit more complex than that. So, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it like you said, it's an off-season thing. Jakob Johnson's actually on a 1-year deal.
Right.
I don't know who else is free. I haven't gotten that far ahead, but we will be talking about fullbacks a lot this offseason. They absolutely need to go. They need to go back to their offense. They run this a version like everybody said, okay, well, you got to change the offense with Brady not here. There's definitely a level of truth to that. Most certainly a level of truth to that. But you can still run what they're doing is so completely different than anything they've ever done. Go back, they should have kept the base of what they were doing with Brady. And they haven't done that. Hopefully they go back to it, and going back to that means going back to having a fullback.
Right. Before we get back to our questions, let's quickly talk about our new sponsor here on the show, Rocket Money. Rocket Money. Did you know, Alex, that do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? I'm going to guess you don't. I'm sure you have a bunch of them, whether it's ESPN Plus or Hulu, Netflix, etc. But nearly 80% of people have subscriptions that they completely forget about. Most Americans, in fact, think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions, when really it's closer to $200 or more. It could be, that unused Amazon Prime account, a Hulu account that never gets streamed, but they're literally draining your bank account. You could be wasting, like I said, hundreds of dollars each month on subscriptions that you don't even know about. I don't do that, Alex, because there's this app I love and use, and it's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. The app shows you all your subscriptions all in one place and then cancels whatever you want, whatever you still don't want. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't know you were paying for. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription, all you have to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Get rid of useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. Seriously, it could save you hundreds of dollars per year. That's rocketmoney.com/beat. Cancel your unnecessary subscriptions right now at rocketmoney.com/beat. You can see it in the lower third there on the screen, rocketmoney.com/beat. You'll save hundreds of dollars to cancel all your unnecessary subscriptions right now. Back to Q's. Let's see what we got here. You think the Pats will bring back Mac Wilson, Alex? I know they sort of went for that speed at linebacker. It seemed to work out decently for them, but I don't know. What do you think of the backup room going forward?
I like to see it. I would. I don't think he's a player that will be very expensive. From what I can tell, I think he's enjoying his experience here. That linebacker room is really close knit. Certainly a role for him in this defense. I'd like to see them make an external addition to the room. A big external addition, unlike they did last year. But I think he's a guy to keep around. I would not be now. Look, if somebody's going to give him big money, I'm not paying him big money. But you look at how they've kept guys in the past. I'm trying to like Raekwon McMillan, right? Like Raekwon McMillan last year, how they kept him around. They just kept Jelani Tavai around. Like if you can get him back for Jelani Tavai money, absolutely no brainer.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's value in that athleticism at the position. I'm not sure how much more he commands. I don't know if he commands more than that. I think it's about that. It might even be less. So very short money, probably not a guy that, you're going to need to guarantee anything to. So if you get to camp and he kind of falls out of the depth chart, whatever, right? Yeah,
right.
I think he's the kind of guy they bring back, and I'd like to see him bring back.
How about Jakobi Meyers? We were talking about this the other day, in fact. What do you think his contract looks like? Because he's a guy who's clearly showing out in his contract year, and he's going to command a bag wherever he goes. He's someone who is clearly important to this offense, so in theory, he deserves it here. But Belichick's not going to want to give him market value. So what do you think a contract looks like, and do you think the Patriots go for it?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pulling Christian Kirk's here, $72 million over 4 years. If I'm Jakobi Meyers, I'm not taking a dime less than that.
Exactly.
I'm not taking a dime less than that. I'm starting at 475, maybe going up to 480. There are teams that are going to want him. And then on top of that, it's a good year for slot receivers in the draft. I don't know if you watched the Big Ten championship. Charlie Jones,
yep.
They were laying it on a little heavy with he reminds you of Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola and who else did he say? And it wasn't Hogan. Wes Welker. Wes
Welker, yep.
And it's like, all right, you're laying it on a little strong, but they're not in the wrong. Honestly, the guy he reminds me of a ton. You just read his scouting report is Jakobi Meyers.
Right.
I watch him and I see Jakobi Meyers, and Purdue uses him just like the Patriots use Jakobi Meyers. He's projected to be a 3rd round pick. The old school Patriots, this is what they would do. They would let Jakobi walk and go and draft Charlie Jones. So I think they'll offer him something. I don't think he's a guy that they don't want back, but he's going to have a big market. He's going to have a big market, and I don't know that they're interested in playing in that market. The other thing is, if you are going to go out and get, a Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Jordan Addison type of player, if you do want to go out and get that true legitimate number one weapon threat, you need space for him on the field.
Right.
And so if you bring back Meyers, Parker's still here. You're going to sit Devontae Parker after No, you're not going to sit him. Right. He's too good. Maybe you let Aguilar walk, but Aguilar's not playing that much right now anyway. You got to give Tyquan Thornton room. You're not going to move on from Tyquan Thornton a year after investing the 50th overall pick in him.
Right.
So, yeah,
it's a weird room.
It makes football. There are football reasons why you would move on from Jakobi Meyers. It's not an easy decision to make, but I think at the end of the day, I hate using this cliche. It might end up being what's best for the team.
Okay. Again, that's something where I look at it, right? And you look at the guys they've let walk, but then they bring in another guy, like a Malcolm Butler walked, but they brought in Steph Gilmore. I think that I don't know if those were the same offseason, different offseason.
Essentially, that's what happened. They were together here for a year, but they signed Steph knowing they weren't paying Malcolm Butler.
Right.
Or there's also Malcolm Butler or Steph Gilmore, J.C. Jackson.
Exactly. Right. They did those back to back, but then there's also I'm trying to think of examples of guys who were due for a contract and they actually brought them back at like a market value. Like you look at, I think McCourty might have happened once, and maybe like Dante Hightower.
McCourty, Hightower, Shaq Mason, they paid.
Okay, yep.
when he was a free agent, they extended him before he hit the open market. James White got a contract from them. It doesn't happen a lot,
It's
but it does
happened. It
happen
doesn't
with
happen
him.
a
Yeah.
lot. So yeah, we'll see. Again, worth the money, might not fit depending on where they want to go. Here's
Yeah.
a question specific to you, and I know that we'll do this all off season, and
Yeah.
eventually you guys might ask them to me as well. But we know Alex is the draft guru right now, so should we do whatever necessary to get Paris Johnson in the draft? Is he our offensive line solution?
So I will see what happens. A couple of guys have actually announced they're going back to school, which so the
Yeah,
board still uh the board is still, it hasn't been set yet, right?
right.
That being said, I like this tackle class.
Hmm.
Paris Johnson's a good player, and he's projected to go right around that 15 to 20 range. We're talking about the Patriots playoff or not. I'd love him if they can get him. I don't know that you need to sell out to get Paris Johnson, because I like some of the depth here. A guy like Broderick Jones, and here we go with the Jones. I didn't even mean to do this. I gave you Charlie Jones, I gave you Broderick Jones, and I'm going to say the guy I really like for them, and it's a bit of a trend breaker for them to draft a guy like this, but I don't think it's totally out of the possibility, especially after they had a trend-breaking draft last year. It's actually not Paris Johnson, but the guy, Ohio State's other tackle, a guy named DeJuan Jones. And yes, it's three Joneses. Keep up.
Yep,
Keep up with the Jones.
yep.
DeJuan Jones, he's also played both sides like Paris Johnson has. He's pretty athletic for his size. And when I say his size, he's 6'8", 380. And he's not like immobile. He's not going to win any foot races. But the guy who he reminds me of, at least, when he got to New England, is Trent Brown. Mm-hmm. He looks a lot like Trent Brown did after that season in San Francisco when he came to New England. So can they duplicate what they had with Trent Brown? Because I'll tell you this. You put DeJuan Jones next to Michael Onwenu on that right side, you're going to run for 8 yards of carry.
Right, that's
in the B gap on the right side. Like, nobody's moving them. Nobody. So if Paris Johnson's there on the board, I'd take him. I would great pick.
right.
Nailed it. A+, move on. But, are you going to give up premium draft assets to move up? We still have a long way to go. Don't hold me to this. There's still a lot of studying to do. But the way it's kind of initially lining up right now, this might be a thing where there are first round caliber tackles, or even top 15 caliber tackles going at the end of the first round.
Right.
And the gap between I don't think the gap between Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones is all that big. I think that can be closed with coaching and things like that. And I trust them to coach up offensive linemen. They've always done it very well, even still without Dante Scarnecchia. So I don't know that they need to totally sell out to get a guy like Paris Johnson, is essentially what I'm saying.
I feel
As things stand right now, they can change.
Right. Again, 5 games left. So speaking of which, is the Raiders the only win left on the Patriots schedule? I don't know how you feel about going through win-loss, like your guys at Felger and Maz at the Hub. If you don't want to do it, I certainly will.
All right.
But
no, let's go for it.
Okay, Arizona. That's a win.
Yeah, they should beat the Cardinals. That team's
Arizona.
Also just an absolute mess.
Right. I'm not too sure the Raiders are a win right now. They've won, 3 in a row?
They're kind of rolling.
They're rolling. They're at home. Patriots will be on a short week yet again to travel to Vegas. That's not a definite W.
No.
I'll call it a win, but it's not certain. What do you think?
It's a toss-up. It's a toss. I'd call it a toss-up. Yeah, they're going to have to play a good game. They're going to have to show up.
Then they come home for Cincy. I think Cincy's rolling. I don't think they're going to get
that might be the hottest team in football right now.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing they did last year. Miami, Week 17. I think that's a toss-up still, too. I think at Gillette Stadium, depending on the weather, they're a team that they seem to be, really good in the correct, atmosphere. But once they hit a little bit of hardship, even like you saw yesterday against San Fran, with Brock freaking Purdy on the other sideline, they kind of exposed themselves a little bit, I'd say. I mean, they still played fine, but having said that, that's a game I think the Patriots can win. I still do that as a toss-up.
I think, I kind of put it in the same vein as the Raiders game, and I know that sounds weird because the Dolphins are a better team than the Raiders, but you look at some of the external circumstances, the matchup, things like that. Like, I think both of those games are coin flips. So right now we have them 1-1-2.
Yeah, And then at Buffalo, they're not going to beat Buffalo. They can't beat Buffalo again.
I mean, that could be a thing where Buffalo has everything locked up and they sit everybody.
If Case Keenum's playing, then it's a toss-up, even in my opinion.
So the question becomes, Sean McDermott really doesn't like Bill Belichick. Like, really doesn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
If the Bills have everything locked up and the Patriots needed to get into the playoffs, is Sean McDermott dumb enough to put all his guys out there for the full game?
Right.
That's what that comes down. Like, remember, like, okay, a couple of years ago, was it 16 or 18 when they played Buffalo? It was 16 because Jimmy played. They played Buffalo in week 17, and Brady played the first half, and they were just kind of like dogging it for the first half. And then Stidham came in and they lost, but like it literally didn't impact the standings at all. Right.
Yeah.
That could, and it sucks because if you don't include that game, they have like this insane winning streak and all that. Like maybe the Patriots win the last week this year because Buffalo says everybody, we can just agree to trade those games. Like maybe that happens.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. But again, so to answer this question, no, that is definitely not their only win. It might even be a loss. And again,
like, is there a world where it ends up their only win? Absolutely.
Sure. The Patriots.
But I don't think it will be.
Yeah, I said it before the Buffalo game. I think the Pats are a team that can beat anyone or lose to anyone. I don't think they can beat the top tier anymore, but they can certainly lose to anyone. So again, we'll see how it goes. This is a funny one. Did you see N'Keal's yearly deep catch and limp off the field for the Bears yesterday? N'Keal Harry making plays for Justin Fields yesterday. Alex Barth.
Throwing your big wide receiver a back shoulder pass and one-on-one coverage. What a concept. How many times did they throw him that ball here?
Right.
And he got hurt. I mean, but...
Of course he got hurt. It happened last year against Indy. They threw them that one deep ball. He goes up and makes a catch and he limps off. Let's see. What do we got, folks? Bring in the questions. I mean, do we need it?
If you guys want to do draft questions too, just drop
throw anything in here. Yeah. Do we need a new guard?
I hope not.
Right.
I wouldn't hate them if they want to go in the draft in like the 5th or 6th round, because Michael Onwenu is going to be in a contract year next year. He's another guy that's going to be very expensive.
Right.
If they don't think they're going to pay Onwenu and they want to get ahead of it in the draft and kind of get a developmental player to maybe replace Onwenu in 2024, I'm not opposed to it. But as a starting guard, and actually, honestly, they need depth in general at the position.
But so build off it.
Who's
your ideal starting offensive line in 23?
Okay. Trent. I think Trent can turn it around.
So
he'll be in a contract year, and he's been at his best in contract years. I think so. I'd go Trent at left tackle. Cole Strange, you keep it the same through the middle. Cole Strange, David Andrews, Michael Onwenu, and then DeJuan Jones, Paris Johnson, Peter Skoronski, whoever the right tackle you draft in the first round.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And ideally a guy that I kind of like the Nate Solder model. Draft a guy who can play both sides. He's going to play right tackle this year. And then you move on from Trent, and he becomes your long-term left tackle. Like that's and even what they almost did with Isaiah Wynn at one point. I would go with that. That would be my idea.
I think so too. I think
line.
whether it's a new right tackle is the answer. It's not Marcus Cannon who comes off IR. He's going to probably retire. It's not Isaiah Wynn. Right. He's going to be gone somehow, some way. It's someone new, whether it be a top end, bottom end, first, second round pick. It's something new at right tackle. But I agree with you. I think Trent can turn it around. Trent's a guy who he's very hit or miss. He's very up and down, and that's just kind of the player he is. But when he's on, he's on. So it's almost sometimes it's worth the valleys.
And I guess let me say this. I'm kind of being realistic there.
Right.
It's incredibly difficult to like this is one of the hardest positions to add at. Not necessarily in terms of recognition. It's actually one of the easier positions to scout. But the investment it takes to add a legitimately good tackle, whether that be in draft picks, financial, or trade, whatever, these are some of the most expensive players in the league. Adding one tackle is like an off-season's worth of investments. Two is, I mean, that's it. That's pretty much your offseason if you want to add 2 starting caliber tackles. So in a perfect world, you either sign and trade for one and then you draft another and you do move on from Trent. I just don't think that's realistic right now. I think you hope Trent turns it, Isaiah, they can't bring back Isaiah when he doesn't want to be here.
Right.
He's quit. You move on from him. You address that spot. You hope Trent gives you a serviceable contract year in 2023. And then you add another tackle in the 2024 off season, and now you're set for multiple years. Like that's being realistic. If we're just talking pie in the sky, pay the top tackle in free agency and then draft a tackle in the first round.
Trade for Jason Kelsey and moved that's not. I'm messing around because you like David Andrews here, but that's the realistic offensive line is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they need to address both tackle spots, but to do so in the way they need to do it in one offseason is next to impossible.
Right. So Bill said this morning on the radio that they will not be changing the play caller. However, if they did, let's just do a hypothetical.
Okay.
Who do you think is the best person on staff to take over the play calling? Because you look at it, and
best person on staff. Okay.
So, like, you have Joe Judge, who's the quarterback's coach, but then, again, that sort of seems like a hip pocket kind of thing where it's basically just going to be the same thing because I feel like he has his hands in there a little bit too. So then you have Kaylee and you have Troy Brown. What's the best way to do it? What do you say?
I'd go Troy Brown. I don't think there's a wrong answer between Troy Brown and Nick Haley. I'd go Troy Brown, but they clearly like Nick Haley, and maybe there's something there that we're just not privy to on the outside looking in. Sure. Either of those two guys, just give them a shot for the rest of the year, and then if they're good at it, great. If not, we get to start talking about Bill O'Brien and all those options, but anybody but those two, man. Pretty much anybody but those two. Not those two being Brown and Kaylee, those two being the new guys, right?
You don't even want to say them by name. They're just the new guys.
I just thought calling them those two would be a fun bit, but
the ones.
Right.
Yeah, it can't be Judge. It can't. I'd rather. Where do you put Belichick in that mix? What if he takes the play sheet? Would you rather him call it for success? I mean, I would rather see Brown or Kaylee call it, to line something up potentially in the future. But if you need to go get a win, where do you put Belichick in that?
I guess if we're talking about, like, you want to make a playoff run this season,
right?
He's obviously up there.
That's what I think.
He's not going to, like, Mac Jones should outlast him in New England in theory, right? I want to get Mac Jones, his guy. Maybe it's Nick Haley, right? Maybe it's Troy Brown. So let those guys see if the chemistry's there, see if it works. I also Bill's done a great job with the defense this year. And I worry about what happened last year, right? Where Bill flipped back to the offense late in the year and the defense kind of imploded. Bill's got enough going on. Right. I'd take him equally there in a bubble with Kaylee and Brown, but I don't want to take him away from the other things he's doing right now.
Right. Let's look big picture. I've seen this a few times along the lines of, do we need to rebuild, tanking, whatever the case may be. But I thought this sort of, outlines it pretty well. Are the Patriots on the verge of being on the verge of multiple years being an average to mediocre team, especially with the vision getting better around them? Because Charles mentions here, the Bills are the best team in the AFC right now. The Dolphins are getting better. The Jets are competing. The Patriots aren't doing anything. And you look at the rest of the division as well. You have the Chiefs, you have the Bengals. The Patriots are just moving slowly down that ladder. And I just think, I personally think they're sort of stuck in purgatory right now. And that's going to happen. They're going to sit there until they make some serious changes on the offense. And I don't know when that's going to happen. But yeah, I think there's a chance that they stick around here for some time.
Yeah, I think they can get out of it. It's just a matter of do they want to. And I know that kind of sounds ridiculous, but you look at how fast the Bengals turned it around. You look at how fast the Dolphins turned it around. You look at how fast the Bills turned it around, really, from 2019 to 2020. What does all that have in common? They added a new offensive mind to the coaching staff. In the case of, the Bills, that was an OC and Brian Daboll. In the case of the Dolphins, it was a head coach and Mike McDaniel.
Right.
All three teams added elite wide receivers. They all did it in a year. Like, it can be done.
Right.
They have to want to do it. And by want, I mean, it takes some risks. It takes, it's going to cost you in terms of picks, in terms of dollars, in terms of all of it. Right. But I don't think Mac Jones is like I don't think Mac Jones is not an NFL quarterback. Mac Jones belongs. If Mac was out here looking like Zach Wilson, I would say, because they're going to have to go back in the quarterback carousel and they're going to have to do that whole thing again. And no, I don't think they need to do that. They might do it, They might.
But
And
that
if they
doesn't
do,
solve the problems.
well, but that's my point.
No,
That's
right,
my
I know.
point,
Just
right?
yeah.
It's like, are they going to stick this thing out with Matt Patricia and see if he can learn? And oh no, Matt couldn't pick it up. And, we got to get rid of a guy like Kendrick Bourne who's
I'll
talking
lose my
against the
mind,
offense and things
Alex.
like that. Like, I will too. But like, if they go down that road, then yeah, this is what they're going to be. This might be the peak for a while.
Right.
But if they get serious and they bring in a guy who actually knows offense and knows how to develop quarterbacks, and they bring in that number one target and they fix the offensive line, which again is a lot, but not impossible to do in one offseason, then they can, I don't know, they're going to be Super Bowl favorite, right? But they can, the
They can
two teams
compete.
I'm giving you, the Dolphins and the Bengals, they can get on that level relatively quickly. They just have to put the work in.
Well, this is why I get so fed up with Belichick so much lately. I mean, again, it's people call you crazy to critique the guy who's won 6 Super Bowls, but like things are not going well here right now, and they don't seem to be getting any better anytime soon. Just with the direction things are
Well,
going.
just it's self-inflicted wounds, right?
Right.
And what I say to people when they kind of question that, like, how can you? And I'm a big Bill guy. I
Oh
am a
yeah.
bit like I was ready to see how Cam Newton did. I was ready to see how Jarrett Stidham looked in 2020. Like I was like, all right,
Right.
if Bill thinks it's Jarrett Stidham, I don't know. I was not a big Jarrett Stidham guy at Auburn, but like, sign me up. Let's see what this
Right.
looks like, right? People say, well, he won 6 Super Bowls. Shouldn't that give him a lot of leash? Yes, that gives him a massive leash, and he's using every
He's
single
already
inch
used it.
of
Right.
that leash right now, right? So
Right, dude.
this
Like, yeah.
any other coach would have been out of here a while ago.
Right. So that's kind of what.
This is where we're like. This is how far winning 6 Super Bowls. This is how much leeway it gets you to this exact scenario right here.
Right. So that's sort of where it's like, okay, if he's going to continue to be contrarian Bill, then you are going to be that average to mediocre team. But if you say, you know what, maybe I'm not outsmarting each team as I have been for the last 20 years, and maybe things are starting to catch up, or maybe it doesn't work anymore, and you start to copy the blueprint, then you can, get over that hump, like we're saying. Let's do one more, because I saw this a few times, and then we'll get into our college football minute, and we'll wrap this thing up with Boston sports. But do they re-sign Damian Harris, or do they spend another pick on a running back? This came up a few times. Again, Harris has been hurt this season, so his value might be lowered a little bit. So where do you see Harris in the room?
Yeah, that factors in. I know they usually don't pay running backs, especially early down running backs. The one thing I wonder, like, he's such a good guy in that locker room. He's a leader on this team. People in the locker room look up to him. They respect him. Hard worker, lead by example guy, all of it. They do reward that.
Right.
And if he's not going to get a ton of money, he's been hurt, right? Do you bring him back on a 1-year deal where he can prove he's healthy, give him another shot to go chase that big contract? Like, he's a character guy. He's almost kind of become one of those cornerstone guys,
right,
where it goes beyond the positional element of it of, they don't pay running backs. Like, this may be they don't, but they pay cornerstone guys, and he's a cornerstone guy. That being said, the injury makes him more affordable. It also means maybe they don't want to give him a roster spot because he's not, reliable. I don't know that they're using another pick on a running back either way. They took 2 running backs last year. They've had success finding undrafted running backs in the past. If they're going to use a draft pick on a running back, it's irrelevant to Damian Harris. It's a pass catching back if they're worried about Pierre Strong, but I could see Harris coming back. I don't know for sure. I think we kind of need to see how the season winds down here, but I wouldn't rule it out either. All right, we need to do one more question.
Okay.
I've seen this asked.
This was going to be, I was just going to do this. Go ahead.
I've seen this asked a million ways today, right? They're on a losing streak. Is Matt going to get punished for yelling at Matt Patricia on the sideline? All of that. People want Bailey Zappi to start so bad. No. It's possible. If Mac Jones gets hurt in practice, it's possible Bailey Zappi starts.
Right.
I love Bailey Zappi. He's great. He's great.
Cool.
I was telling y'all about him at this time last year, and Evan was telling me to shut up because nobody cared. Right? I had Zappi fever before any of you.
He's patient zero of Zappi fever.
Right now, you need to they need to get Mac Jones developed. They need to get Mac Jones out there. They need to get his confidence back up. They need to get him seeing the field right again, all of it. You know what's a great opportunity to do that? Against a 31st ranked defense in the league. Yep. The rest of the season needs to be about Mac Jones, figuring out what the deal is with him. I still like Bailey Zappi. I think he's going to be a great backup in this league. I think he'll end up being a fringe starter kind of player, right? Like maybe even a step above Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel's been my comp, a step above that. He's an
That's
NFL
the one thing that Bill still does well is bring in and develop quarterbacks.
Right. He's an NFL quarterback. but you've invested too much in Mac Jones. You need to figure out what the deal's with Mac Jones. Mac Jones' ceiling is higher. Your Mac Jones is going to get you where you want to go a lot quicker and a lot more easily than Bailey Zappi. Mac's the guy. Mac is the guy. We need to stop doing this. We need to stop. And this coming from, again, patient zero Zappy fever. Fun story. It's Mac's team.
Yeah, I'm with you. You gave no offense to you, soundness of mind. You gave them a lot more airtime than I would. I was going to pull it up and say no, and then move on. But yeah, again, everything Alex said, right? It's not you got to get Mac going still. He's the guy. That's their team. Thank you all for throwing the questions in. It makes it easy for the flow of the show to go. It's good stuff. We are obviously always like to answer those questions, so thank you for dropping those in, Alex. Let's do college football.
Yeah,
because it was a very good weekend of college football.
It was excellent.
It was good stuff. The playoff was announced. We talked about it last week. TCU was ranked 3rd. USC was ranked 4th. There was a good chance each of them was going to lose their conference championship, and they did. It was not enough to knock TCU out of the playoff. It was enough to knock USC out. They dropped from 4 all the way to, I think, 7 or 8.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's add into like USC got blown out. Like,
right, 100%. Yeah, USC got it handed to them against Utah. TCU lost in overtime, so they didn't drop it all. The Final Four is Georgia 1, Michigan 2, TCU 3. What are you making?
Did you just see this? So they just announced the Heisman finalists.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Max Duggan, CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams, fine. And for some reason, Stetson Bennett's on there?
Made 4th and not Blake Corum?
No.
That's crazy.
No. Boo.
Wow. So
first of all, it should be Duggan.
Yeah, I think it might be Max Duggan.
One of the most epic quarterback performances I've ever seen. The guy couldn't stand in between plays. He's taking his team up and down the field. An absolute shame on Sonny Dykes for taking the ball out of his hands late in that game. They should have won that game. They're giving him the whole A gap. 3rd and goal, quarterback sneak, right? And then, you don't get the stop late. TCU should have won that game. Max Duggan, that was a Heisman performance.
Yeah, it was.
Year that his team lost. Yes, it's a little bit of a down year for the Heisman. That was a Heisman performance. They deserve to be in the playoff. Sonny Dykes play calling aside, and Max Duggan deserves the Heisman. And get the hell out of here with Stetson Bennett.
I really thought that when ESPN PR tweeted that they were going to be announcing the finalists tonight on Monday Night Football Countdown, and they said I figured it was going to be 3. I thought they were going to do Caleb Williams,
Isn't
CJ
it always
Stroud.
4?
They no, because there's been 5 some years. There's been 3 some years. Because I know for like the reason I know that is because the year AJ Dillon was in it, he was like the 5th guy in, and they had him in.
Okay.
And then the Johnny Manziel year it was Manziel, Colin Klein, and Manti Te'o, so it was only 3. So they switch it up. I think it has to do with the voting and when the votes come in and things like that. But
why is
when they announced
Bennett on there?
Well, when they announced it was 4, I thought, okay, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, Max Duggan, and Blake Corum.
Blake Corum, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr., right?
But again, Corum was a guy who was in there till the end, and until he got hurt, I thought, he could win if Michigan got on his back and went through the Big Ten and did it all through him, that he could have won it. But no, it's Stetson Bennett. I don't know if they have votes in, and that's how they do it. But that could mean Stetson Bennett got some 4th place votes in there that Blake Corum didn't.
Man, I just
national it's like when AJ McCarron made it his senior year too. So
it's funny. I was thinking this the other day, like, as good as this Georgia team is, they don't have a Heisman finalist, right?
Right.
Is he just there representing Georgia essentially?
That's what it feels like. That's really what it is.
He should not win it. There's no way.
He's not going to win it. It's going to be Duggan, or it's probably going to be Caleb Williams. But if it's not, it's Max Duggan.
It should be Duggan. It should absolutely be. I know people get squeamish about the playoff game determining or the conference championship determining the playoff game, and I get that.
Right.
It should absolutely be a factor when it comes to the Heisman.
Right. So. Again, we'll see. That was good timing that came out right as we started the minute.
I'm angry now, though.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But again, so let's transition from Stetson Bennett to the playoff itself. Georgia's going to play Ohio State. Michigan's going to play TCU. Are either of these close games, or is it just a crash course for Georgia and Michigan?
I mean, Georgia, Ohio State's interesting. Like, Ohio State has a ton of NFL talent.
Yeah.
And they've beat SEC teams in the playoffs before. They beat Bama, right, a couple years ago. So,
Right.
I don't know, especially Max Duggan's banged up. TCU's not hanging in there with Michigan.
No.
They're probably closer than they've been in the past. Like, this is much closer than last year when you had Georgia against the
Cincy.
Michigan team that wasn't ready and Alabama against the Cincinnati team that didn't belong there, right?
Right.
It's much closer than last year. Georgia Ohio State should be a good game. I think TCU hangs around maybe with Michigan for a half and then Michigan pulls away.
Well, you mentioned Max Duggan being banged up. The thing is, they still have a month to go till these games are played, or at least 3.5 weeks anyway. So you have time to get yourself ready. Obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba will not be playing for Ohio State. He declared for the draft today and won't be there, so that takes away from the Ohio State offense a little bit. But that's Marvin Harrison's room now, and they just they lucked out this weekend with USC and TCU, I guess, losing. At TCU didn't matter because they stayed it through, but they lucked out with Caleb Williams going down against Utah. So yeah, we'll see. I think. Do you think Bama got snubbed? Do you think they should have got in? I think if had TCU not came back from 11 points down in that fourth quarter and they lost the game by 11, I thought there was a realistic chance that TCU and USC both fell out and that Ohio State, Alabama could have got in. But again, you mentioned it. The way Duggan brought those guys back on Saturday showed that we're not done yet, and they didn't even drop a spot, and they stayed at 3.
Yeah, I agree. Is Alabama better than TCU? Probably, but I think at the end of the day, you need to reward the teams that played their schedule and did the best. And the really interesting would have been if Hendon Hooker didn't get hurt, because if Hendon Hooker doesn't get hurt, they go. They probably have one more win. That one would have been more interesting to me. But I think the committee got it right, and kudos for them. They didn't fall for the cheese of forcing the Ohio State Michigan matchup. Right? They seeded it the way it should have been seeded. Right. So I actually think the committee nailed this one. Yeah, although, did you see what the 12-team playoff bracket would have looked like? Oh,
I think you had sent it to me over the weekend.
Would be excellent.
Yeah, it would.
We got to get to that 12-team already. We got to get there.
Coming in 24, 25, I think it is.
Yeah.
So, lastly, let's head on it quick. But Deion Sanders is now the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. Is that what their name is?
Yeah.
Colorado Buffaloes.
Go Buffs.
Yeah. So it sounds like he had an interesting press conference with his team. Basically said, if you want to be here, you can be here. But if you don't want to, pack your bags and get out. I brought my luggage and it's Louis. I don't know how I feel about it. On one hand, it's awesome because he's like, I'm making this team dominant with or without you. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I don't know. Feels kind of like this is my team, not your team, when it's supposed to be about the players. So it's an interesting dynamic that Deion brings, but he's going to bring his son over probably to play quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, who was Jackson State's quarterback. He's been rock solid for them the last few seasons. So what do you think about primetime going to Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard they already have multiple 4- and 5-star commits planning to sign. They're the number one team in the transfer portal. The NIL money's pooling in. Colorado's going to be a wagon. And let me tell you something. When that team's a wagon, it's been a long time. When that team's good, it's good for college football. The old school program, the brand, that might be one of the best stadiums in college football. You get the sunset over the mountains there, them and USC next year, and honestly probably Utah too, because they just find a way to hang around. Last year of the true Pac-12.
True.
It's going to be a battle.
There's
going to be a lot of good. Oregon, it sounds like Bo Nix is going back to school. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun out west.
And like you said too, and then we'll move on to Boston sports, but just it's crazy. I mentioned that Deion's kind of sounds like he was degrading the guys a little bit, but Colorado was winless this year, and then they bring in Deion, and all of a sudden it's like a literal magnet of 5-star recruits. Yeah. So you can't pass that up if you're Colorado trying to bring Deion in, and whatever Deion says, I mean, shit, it works. So bring him in. He's a magnet for those guys. So. Again, prime time to Colorado. All right, let's do Boston Sports Minute real quick, Alex, because Xander Bogaerts seems very unlikely to be re-signed by the Red Sox. Trey Turner was signed by the Phillies for 11 years for $300 million today, which I guess knocks the Phillies off of the Xander Bogaerts list, but I don't know. The Red Sox seems like they've sort of severed ties there, or Bogaerts has sort of severed their ties, so I don't know what to think of this team anymore. I can't really do it. I sort of just put them in the rearview mirror when it comes to, you have the Patriots who at least I cover. So it's like you got to pay attention to them. Then you have the Celtics and the Bruins who are wagons, and then you have the Red Sox who are they just make me mad, man. They just make me mad.
Yeah, this is infuriating. And
Yeah.
I want Red Sox fans to know something. John Henry thinks you're stupid. Sam Kennedy thinks you're stupid. Larry Lucchino thinks you're stupid. Chaim Bloom thinks you're stupid. You're not. I mean, you might be if you think the Patriots should purposely miss the playoffs, but chances are you're not. They're telling you that Xander Bogaerts is their top priority, not because he's their top priority.
Right.
They're telling you that because they know if they tell you that, it buys just enough time for you to buy your tickets for next year and maybe go out and get a new jersey and tune into Nesson and get that Nesson 360 subscription that we're all supposed to be so excited about. And they're lying through their teeth. They have no interest in paying the guy because you know who else was a top priority? John Lester. You know who else was a top priority? Mookie Betts. This is what they do. Top priority doesn't mean anything to them. It's a buzzword. They've never once backed that phrase up financially. And at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about. Jared Carrabis had a great tweet last night. They made David Ortiz go year to year, season to season for years. Yet they gave a bag to Hanley Ramirez and Pablo Sandoval. They didn't pay John Lester and then overpaid for David Price and Chris Sale. Right? They didn't pay Mookie Betts and basically gave him away for free instead after telling all of us that their goal was to get him back. They don't mean a damn thing they say, and Red Sox fans should take it personally. They should be insulted because they think you're dumb enough to fall for that and then still go to games at what is the most expensive stadium in the major leagues.
Yep.
It's and look, it's not even a Chaim Bloom thing. It's fire Bloom. It's not going to change anything.
It's not a Bloom thing. It's not
the owner group, the ownership group thinks we're all rubes and they treat us as such. You should be. I'm clearly insulted by the way that they treat us, the fans, and you should be too.
You said it. You put it into words for me. I mean, again, it's nonsense. It's stupid. It's sad. They treat you like crap, and you keep running back. Heck, I'll probably be in the freaking stands next season, but maybe I'm stupid too. I don't know, man. They piss me off. They're fun games to go to. They're good hot dogs, but that's about all I got for the Red Sox. If they don't sign Devers, that's the last straw for me.
Yeah, Devers is going to be the last straw for me.
Xander, it's like this puts me to the last straw. Xander's older. You know, you don't know how long you want to pay him, yada yada. There's at least excuses in there. There's no excuse for Devers, so we'll see what happens there. One last thing, Boston sports. Bruce Cassidy returns to the TD Garden tonight against the wagon Boston Bruins, 20-3. Who do you like in that game?
I like the Bruins, man.
The Bees, baby.
They're proving everybody wrong. They had a big win against the Avalanche. It's another kind of statement game.
Yeah,
I think we have both teams tonight, right? Don't the Celtics play tonight too in Toronto?
Yep.
So
Celtics in Toronto, Bruins at the Garden.
Should be
Good
fun.
stuff. Yep. And lastly, we'll go back to the Patriots Beat backer because we have Tom Brady playing tonight. Let's quickly close this out. Monday Night Football picks. Saints are at Bucks. Bucks are 5-6. Saints are 4-8. The Bucks are 3-point favorites at home. That basically tells you that odds makers think they're exactly even teams because they give the home team 3 points. Barth, who do you like?
So first off, I finally got a pick right. Because remember, I had Utah last week.
Yes, he had
and Utah won. So I was 0 for 20-something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Finally back. I like the Bucks. I think this is the time of year that Tom Brady goes into Tom Brady mode. Yeah, he's 5-6, but he's leading the division. You know, this win they get real close to putting it away, oddly enough. I think this is when Brady puts the team on his back and drags them kicking and screaming into the playoffs. I'm going to take the Bucks. Saints might cover. It's a divisional game. Might be close. Might get a little scary there, but I'll take the Bucks.
I guess I do like the Bucks as well, but I gave it to you first and you won last week, so I'll go flip-flop. I'll take the Saints +3 just to keep it us against each other here. So
right.
Again, that's that actually. Again, we'll be back on Thursday to preview Patriots versus Cardinals here on Patriots Beat. Patriots will then take on Arizona on Monday night at 8:15 against Kyler Murray and those Arizona Cardinals. Again, follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Check out all his stuff on 985thesportshub.com. You can do the same for me at CLNSmedia.com and follow me on Twitter at Mike Kadlick. Again, we'll be back on Thursday to preview Pats Cardinals. Until then, thank you guys all for populating the chat for the Q&A, and thanks for watching.